Hey there, Willowbrook, and thanks for doing our deep dive. Today we are in Acts chapter 21. We're going to start in verse 17. Before we get there, what I want to remind you of is that as we've gone through the book of Acts, we have seen the early church birthed. We have watched it grow. We've seen Paul plant churches, and we've seen people come into relationship with Jesus. We have seen that this new message, this new covenant that Jesus formed by dying on the cross and being resurrected, that he took on the sin of the world, did a couple of things. It made a way for people who were not Jews, God's chosen people. It gave access to them to come into relationship with God, to find salvation through Christ. But what it also did is it freed God's chosen people who lived under the old covenant that had law after law after law and sacrifice after sacrifice, that they were now free from that, and that they could come into relationship with Jesus and have salvation through Christ. In fact, he is now the only way. And so Paul has been sharing that, and he's about to go into Jerusalem, where he's going to find some people that before this, he's been with the Gentiles who are really excited about, wait, we can worship the God of the Jews, we can have salvation. They're excited, but he's about to walk into some people, the Jews who live in Jerusalem, who are not so excited about the message. They're not excited about the fact that they are no longer under the law. They are rejecting that truth. They are saying, no, still under the law. This is an important part of salvation. We have it, and what you're saying, Paul, is not right. And so Paul comes into Jerusalem, and he meets with some of his friends, brothers and sisters, it says, who are followers of Jesus. He shares with them what all God has done and how the gospel is spreading among the Gentiles. And then they tell him, Paul, there's some Jews that are spreading some rumors about you, about the message that you're preaching to the Gentiles. And Paul, they're not even a little happy. They are angry, and they're not going to accept a message from you because they believe that you're telling people things that aren't true. So these friends, brothers and sisters, they began to suggest to Paul, hey, Paul, let's build a bridge. You see, I love this because, first of all, if I was Paul and somebody was saying that I said something that I didn't say and they were spreading it around, I would probably find myself angry. I would probably want to put my hand up and be like, whoa, let's talk about this. I would want to argue. I would want to dispute with them. I would want to correct them. I would want to make it right because they're saying things about me. That's not what Paul or his friends suggest. Instead, they see things in light of the gospel. They see things in light of Christ. These Jews needed salvation. They were just as blind as the Gentiles for what it took to have a relationship with Jesus, that it's Christ alone that made that happen. But as long as Paul was peddling something that involved freedom, they weren't even going to listen. And Paul sets his wants, his preferences, even his sense of justice here, let me fix this, aside. And this wise counsel in his life said, hey, what if you and some of your friends actually shaved your heads and took a vow and communicated to these Jews that you're not throwing away the Jewish customs, that it may build a bridge for you to talk to them. I don't know about you, but that convicts me, because often, as much as I would want it to not be true, I'm thinking about myself and how things impact me instead of how can I share the gospel? What would it take? Now, did Paul have to do that? No. Paul made a choice that it's really inconsequential for me to shave my head or not. Do I have to? No, but it's just hair. And if it gives me an opportunity to reach somebody, it's just hair. I wonder what those things are in your life and my life. Things that we think, I do not have to do that. But then when we shift and put it in the lens of the gospel and Christ, does it really matter? Is it something that I could do if it allowed me to have a conversation about the truth of who Jesus is and the one and only way to salvation? I think often our entitlements might get in the way. Christ is asking us to set aside our entitlements. In fact, Paul says in Philippians chapter 1, he says, for me to live, to die is gain. He's saying, hey, everything I'm doing, I'm living is only with Christ as the focus. Is Christ the focus for you? I'm asking myself that. Would you ask God that today? Would you ask him to reveal to you areas that you've just held on to and you said, no, I don't have to do this, or this is right, or this is wrong? And would you ask him about your motives? Are your motives about sharing Christ with someone, or are your motives about being right? Because we don't have to be right. Christ can handle that. But to build a bridge and to have a conversation, not asking anybody to do anything sinful. I'm asking what we're finding in scripture here is things that don't really matter, that we've made into something that matters to us, but it might get in the way of the gospel. Let God speak to you today. Have eyes to see who God might want you to interact with and build a bridge to introduce them to the one true way that's Christ. I hope you'll have a happy Wednesday.